The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games. Check out all their awesome titles at play&nbsp.com.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Capstone Games' Haspelknecht. Then they look back at their review of Escape Zombie City in their Dukes Double-Take. And finally, they talk about games where the theme makes up for gameplay issues. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 116 of the Dukes of Dice, Coal Miners Slaughter.
Yes, Chris Schreiber coming up with that one. That is his fourth episode name.
That is crazy. So if you don't know what we're talking about here, if you go over to our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008, every week we put up our Dukes on Deck where we talk about what's coming up in the next episode, and people help contribute to these naming titles, which is a big help because we're super bad at it, Alex.
Yeah, we're all right.
Yeah. So Coal Miners Slaughter makes perfect sense because it's off of the Coal Miner's Daughter, 1980 movie starring Sissy Spacek and Tommy Lee Jones about Loretta Lynn. Alex, you had no idea what this was about.
Nope, not really.
I watched this by accident.
Okay.
Like maybe 10 years ago. It was on like Stars or something, and I was painting and I couldn't find the remote, and I was really in my painting groove, painting miniatures. And so I wound up watching the entirety of this movie by accident. It was a decent movie, not my type of movie, but it makes sense because we're talking about Haspelknecht, about coal mining, and then also Slaughter for Escape Zombie City, which is our Dukes Double-Take later on in the episode.
It was such a good name that someone else suggested it too. I think BJ did.
Yeah, he was like, oh, missed that. Whoops. So we've got some runners up for episode titles, which we will give you at the bottom of the show.
Very cool. Sean, any show business?
Yeah, so as we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, next week we have Extra Life 2017. Nope, it's 2016. Extra Life 2016, because I know what year it is.
Years.
I just lost a year. So we're playing for Children's Miracle Network Hospital, local to us. That's going to be the University of New Mexico Children's Hospital. And we're going to be gaming, again, Ducal Wii, for 24 hours.
Yes.
Which is going to be insane.
I will be gaming for a significantly shorter time frame than that.
I think I've planned about 36 hours of gaming. So that's not going to quite... I'm not actually doing that. I'm saying what I've planned in my head.
Oh, it would take about 36 hours.
Right. So I need to work on that, trim that down some. But I'm very excited for that. We'll be doing that over with our friends over at Empire Board Game Library. And we've got a link down in the show notes if you want to help the Dukes support their local Children's Miracle Network Hospital. We would really appreciate that. Well, speaking of good causes, Alex, the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund auction is currently live on BGG, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes, but specifically, we'll put a link to our auction item. So if you don't know what this is about, Tom Vassal started this fund to help gamers in need. Unfortunately, he lost his son when he was born. And so this is a great way to honor that memory. It helps gamers in need. And every year we've participated in the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund, well, since we've been around, so for the last 2 years. And we're going to do it again this year. And what you would be bidding on is a care package from the Dukes of Dice, which is going to include one of our favorite games of this year, a local company, Level 99, a copy of Millennium Blades. We're also going to send you some amazing New Mexico green chili and some tortillas from the Albuquerque Tortilla Company, which are freaking delicious. In addition, you're going to be able to play a game with at least one Duke at a convention.
You can pick your favorite.
Yeah, at a convention that we attend. So more than likely, that's going to be Dice Tower Con, BGG Con, maybe Gen Con.
Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation.
Well, that
would work too.
Yeah, I guess that would work too.
Yes.
So check that out. It's for an amazing cause. And some cool stuff that we're going to be giving away. So, and we forget also a 10-inch Dukes of Dice patch that our buddy Nick put together. They're super sweet. Raquel has been, like I said, taking off her Harley patches from leather vests to sew them on.
And now you can join the Dukes of Dice unofficial biker gang.
Yes, indeed. And then last bit of show business, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Dukes of Dice. And you can go over there and help us out with some show costs and expenses, things like that. It's really appreciated for all of our amazing Patreon patrons. And just want to give a quick shout out to Nick Lamb, who is a brand new Knight of the Duchy. Nick, thank you very much for your support. And once again, thanks to everyone else who supports us over there. So that's about it.
Very cool. Sean, what have you been playing this week?
This has been kind of an odd week for me, Alex. My gaming has been down a little bit because I've been preparing for War Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a death metal band.
Yeah, a little bit. So Jeremy and Max and possibly Jared, we're going to be playing some War Machine at Extra Life, probably in the late hours of the morning, or early hours of the morning, however that works. Early hours of the morning.
Early.
Yeah. So War Machine is a miniatures game that I played when it first came out years and years ago. I played first edition. I started to play second edition. It's now in its third edition, and I haven't played in probably 10 years. And Jeremy said, hey, these new sets are coming out. Do you want to get them? And I said, fine. So I'm painting up a Khador set, which are kind of like these Soviet-looking guys, but it's a steampunk thing where you have a warcaster who is controlling these big warjacks, these big like dreadnought warjack things. They're pretty cool. There's also another game called Hordes, which is you have a warlock who's controlling these big giant war beasts, and they're interchangeable. So I've been working on painting my miniatures. In fact, I've been painting while I edit the podcast, which has been good. And also I've been starting to put together some terrain because I have some mediocre terrain that I kind of threw together a while ago. I used to build really nice terrain, and then I got rid of it all, donated to Imperial Outpost years ago. And I said, you know what, I'm going to build some good terrain. So I've been working on that, and that's been taking up some of my gaming time, but it's been fun. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. Once you know how to build terrain, you don't forget that. So it's been fun. You didn't see any of them upstairs, did you?
No, not really.
We'll take a look at them on the way out. So it's some cool hills, some forests, and some ruined buildings. It's pretty sweet.
Nice.
I'm having fun with it.
Y'all have fun with that.
Yeah. In fact, I'll mention some more stuff that might be troubling about miniatures a little bit later in the news.
Excellent. Awesome.
So what have you been playing, Alex?
So I got into play of, and keep in mind, this is from a sponsor of the show. This is a Tasty Minstrel game. This is Thief's Market. Not Thieves Market, but Thief's Market.
Yes.
Because there's one thief who ultimately will control the market, I guess.
Yes.
Is that the idea?
I guess. I don't know.
So, Sean, you've talked about this one on the show before, but basically this is a game where you are rolling dice and dividing. And you're going to roll a group of dice, pick some that you want. Next person comes up, they can either choose to take another section of dice, or they can choose to steal your group of dice and return one of them to the general supply. And ultimately, you're going to go round and round until eventually everyone has at least something. Might not be something they like, but everyone will have something. And you'll use these dice to buy cards, to execute actions, to get points, to get wild tiles, or wild tokens. I guess they're coins. This was a lot of fun, and this is definitely right up my alley in terms of length and in terms of a cool mechanic, some dice rolling to it, but still feels like a good gamer's game. This doesn't feel like just a dice roller where luck's going to dictate everything. There's an element of luck here, but there's a lot of cool decisions, interesting decisions, hard decisions that you make in this game. So I enjoyed this one quite a bit.
Yeah, I figured you would like it, and I was happy to see that you did. I enjoy it quite a bit too. So yeah, I think it's a really solid game, and it's quick. There can be some AP. There definitely can be, and I think that can definitely bog down the game, just like AP can in any game. But I think for the most part, it's a really good play experience. I really do like this game. I've played it 3 times now, and it's been in my bag. I kept it in my bag for Empire every week. Just in case we can break it out, because I really like it. Yeah,
looking to get more plays of this. This was one that I wanted to play at Dice Tower Con, and there just weren't enough people at the TMG booth when I was there to actually play it with me. So really enjoyed this one. Again, big asterisk, they are a sponsor of the show. Just throwing that out there. But I did enjoy this game, and it's certainly, as you were saying, Sean, the type of game that I would tend to enjoy.
Yeah.
So that is Thief's Market.
All right, well, I got to play Kitty Paw from Renegade Game Studios. This was both designed, and the art was done by Aza Chen, and Renegade brought this over here to the US. And this is a weird game, Alex. It comes in this adorable little square kitty box.
It has ears. The box has ears.
It has little flap ears that flap up. And
it can hear when you're planning to get rid of it.
I know. It's
spooky.
It's like Tiny Tina from the Twilight Zone episode. You don't want to get on its bad side.
Yeah.
I guess I'm Telly Savalas in this scenario.
Okay.
So anyway, this is a real-time kind of dexterity, I guess. That's what they call it. They call it dexterity, but I think it's more that it's real-time. And what you're doing is you have these different kitty cubes or kitty square cards. They're more like rhomboids, I guess. And then 2 of them are elongated rhomboids. Is there a term for that?
Rectangle? Not
yeah, but
really.
they're rhomboids.
Okay, I don't know.
I don't know either. Geometry experts, let us know.
Man, we go from Schrodinger's cat last episode to geometry this episode.
To cat-related geometry.
Yes, cat-related geometry.
So there are different colors of cats and then different patterns of cats on reverse sides of the cards. And in real time, what you're doing is you're grabbing these different goal cards and you're trying to build these cat diagrams, orienting them correctly. And the first person to do so puts their paw up and goes, meow. and then everyone has to stop. And as soon as they realize someone has put their paw up and gone, meow, then they have to paw the first person's paw with their own paw.
So it sounds like a little mix of Happy Salmon in here.
Yeah, and then go, meow, themselves.
Okay.
So the last person to paw the other paw and go, meow, is going to lose some points.
Okay.
And then everyone verifies.
But not any of their dignity.
No, none of their dignity. But so then everyone has to verify that the first person who went meow has actually correctly assembled their diagram of kitties. And so yeah, this was fun. We didn't finish the play. It's not the fault of the game. I just don't think we were really in that kind of mood. I think this would be a lot of fun with like Raquel and Mariah, and maybe with some drinks too. It was kind of, we were warming up the night for Dukes of Dice Wednesday night, and it was Nick, Jeff, and I, and we were
that's kind of a weird group for that game.
It wasn't the best group for that game, and so we played a couple of rounds, and we're like, I think we get the idea. It's not going anywhere. I'm keeping it in the collection. It's stupid. It's silly. It's fun. And,
don't call it stupid. The game has ears, Sean.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, tiny kitty. But no, it was really funny. But it was the wrong group for it, by all means. And I think I have to be in a certain mood to play this. But I think for younger gamers are going to have a lot of fun with this. And it was cool. The cats are pretty cute. It was interesting.
I may be always in the mood to play something like this.
Yeah, I could see that.
That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah. It could be.
I think we need to have like a night of just crazy, silly, ridiculous games.
Oh boy.
Just one night where it's Happy Salmon and it's Kitty Paw and it's, I guess Colt Express would kind of fit in that category, or could. Okay, I'll think about that.
So anyway, that's Kitty Paw from Renegade Game Studios.
All right, next one I'm going to talk about is something that Rory over at Empire Board Game Library just got a bunch of copies in of. This is Imhotep.
Bless you.
Thank you. This is a Spiel nominee from this past year. It was up against Codenames and Karuba. I had said that I liked it probably the best, though I think Codenames will have the best staying power.
Right.
Codenames is the game that you'll probably be playing 5-10 years from now. Imhotep you may not, but I enjoy Imhotep more as a game. It's certainly the most difficult of those three games, I think by far.
Oh yeah, easily.
And it's one that you could see in kind of the older days of the Spiel possibly even winning. This is a game where you are, I guess, Egyptian architects, boats people. Sure, that works. And your objective is to score points in various ways by taking these blocks, your blocks, loading them onto boats, and then sailing the boats to different ports to do different things, whether that's building an obelisk, or building out a burial chamber, or building the pyramid, or grabbing cards at the market. Those are, I think there's a couple others I'm forgetting, but that's the general gist. Some of those are immediate points. Some of those are end of round points. Some of those are end of game points. It's a very easy to teach game.
Yes.
And plays pretty quickly in about 40, 45 minutes or so. But there's enough depth there and interesting decisions that gamers have enjoyed this one. So I played this one not at the Dukes of Dice game. I played it at the Dukes of Dice game night. I also played it on Friday with our cardboard lunch crowd, which tends to be heavier gamers, and it fit in just fine there. So this is a game that's, I think, remarkably versatile. It can be, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's gateway, but I've seen young kids in Empire playing this one just as much as I've seen kind of hardened, grizzled gamers playing this one.
Grizzled gamers,
and not people who just exclusively play the grizzled.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. I really enjoy this one. May pick up a copy of my own.
Interesting.
I'd say it's definitely in that 5 range, and I would hope we'd review it soon. I don't know if we will.
Okay. So let me say, I haven't talked about it on the show, but I did play it. I wound up playing it at Dice Tower Con after we recorded the show, and I enjoyed it, but as far as the 3 Spiel nominees, this is probably at the bottom.
Interesting.
Right. I mean, for me, it's Codenames because, like you said, Codenames is definitely going to have the staying power, and I just have more fun with Codenames. Then it's Karuba, which is crazy because it's such a simple game, but I like how simple it is. I like how light it is. I like how quick it is, and I like the puzzly nature to it. This one felt a little dry to me, though it was very cool how the different sections you would send the boats to operated in very different ways.
Well, and to be clear, there's an A and B side of the board.
Right.
So there's different abilities on I haven't even played with the B side of the board yet.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how that goes.
I think it's a solid game. I think mechanically it's really solid. I just wasn't super crazy about it, but I think it's a good game.
And if I'm ranking them, I go Imhotep, Codenames, Karuba.
Yeah.
So
all right. Well, one of us is right because we can't both be right, and it's probably me. So anyway, and the Spiel committee would agree with me.
The Spiel committee did in fact agree with you on Codenames. We don't know what second and third were because they don't release that.
They told me.
Did they tell you?
Oh, I just got a text.
Oh, did you?
It's Karuba.
Oh, it's the entire Spiel committee texting
Yes.
Sean right now.
Yeah, I'm in a group message with
Hey,
them
we
right
heard
now.
you might be talking about Imhotep. Anyway, God. All right, what else did you play, Sean?
Well, I didn't quite play Feast for Odin.
No.
But I got
You tried to.
I tried to. So I got Feast for Odin in from Z-Man Games, and this is the new Uwe Rosenberg game that is ginormous. I couldn't have a comfortable life in the box, but like if I had a small futon and if I had like a couple small cabinets, I could probably live in this box.
It's big.
Because it's a big box. It is bigger than Caverna. It's bigger than Fields of Arla. It is a monstrous, monstrous box. So what happened Wednesday night was you were playing in the Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu tournament that Matthew was running over at Empire.
Yes.
And I was supposed to be in that, but then we both gave up our seats for two people that had just shown up because we're very nice.
Yes.
Dudes.
Oh, yes. It was totally done out of a sense of being nice.
Yeah. And not to say that we don't like Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu. I do. I wasn't in the mood to play in a P-Rock tournament.
P-Rock.
But then
Yeah.
the two people that took our spots, one of them had to then drop out, and so you wound up playing in it. And
Which didn't take very long.
No, it didn't take long, which I thought it would take longer than it did. And then Chris and Matt were off playing Mecha Minions. They were already in the middle of that. And I was all alone. There was no one for me to play with. And I was like, oh, well, this is weird. So I did have Feast for Odin with me. I said, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set it up, and I'm at least gonna get through the first couple rounds for some solo play. Well, it took me about 35 minutes to set it up. It took me far longer to set it up than it did for me to read the rule book. I'd already kind of gone through it. So basically, Feast for Odin is a worker placement style game where you are trying to fill the spots on your player board with filling them in with goods, and then these Tetris-shaped pieces, because the more you cover up, the more income you can get throughout the game. And then the more you're covering up these negative points, which you're going to need because you need points to win the game, obviously. What's really cool is it has an action board, kind of like Agricola does or Fields of Arla. And you have, I think, 6 or 7 of your workers, but there are columns of action spots. So column 1 requires you place 1 worker, column 2, 2, and then 3, and then 4. So that's kind of cool. You get more powerful actions, but you have to use more of your workers at once, and these are exclusive action spaces. And there's some Le Havre-style chaining of goods into other goods, which is really cool. Really, it's kind of a mismatch of a bunch of different of these Uwe mechanics that he's perfected over the years. I got it all set up, and I got halfway through a first round of play, which was me placing a couple guys out. I've got a feel for the game just having set it up and read the rules and played through a couple rounds, but I haven't done much of the converting. I haven't done much of the tile placement. You can send ships out to explore other isles, which give you then these new tiles to place new things on. I am very excited for this game. Very excited. We were supposed to play it last night on our Dukes of Dice date night. The plan was to get there early enough to play this and Haspelknecht, but Raquel takes like 3 hours to get ready, and we got to Empire super late, so that didn't happen.
Womp womp.
So
womp.
I'm hoping with Feast for Odin, the rules very fresh in my mind, that I at least get a solo play, if not more, this week. I'm very excited for this game. It was overwhelming looking at all the action spaces, and you saw it too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think I mentally passed on that game just seeing everything.
Excellent. Good. But yeah, it looked very overwhelming, but I'm very excited to really dig into this game. I think it looks amazing.
There are some Uwe games that I can really dig. Then there's some Uwe games that just go a little bit too far for me. I think Feast for Odin is going to be firmly in the latter category.
Okay.
So Anyway, speaking of games that you would think would go too far for me,
Yeah.
Vinhos. We played Vinhos at Cardboard Lunch on Friday, and this was the deluxe edition with 2016 updated rules.
Yes.
And there's a significant difference between these two games with the two different rule sets. Sean, you had played, have you played the earlier rule set?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I own Vinhos. I own the original Vinhos, and I've played the
Just
the
because
original.
you own a game doesn't mean you've played it.
I know, which is why I then went on to say, and I've played it.
What did you think of Vinhos when you played it?
Oh, I love it. Oh, it's super good. It's super chunky, very heavy, very difficult decisions, very tight gameplay, and I enjoy all of that. I enjoy the difficulty presented by the 2010 rule set. Go on.
The 2016 rule set streamlines a lot of that stuff.
Right.
Specifically, one of the trickier parts of the game, which is the bank. And also the fair. It streamlines both of those pretty reasonably. And it's still a very chunky game. Definitely on the heavier end. Not as chunky as some other Vital Lacerda games are. Vital Lacerda, for folks who don't know, did Kanban, did the Gallerist as well. So this is my third Vital Lacerda game that I've played. And I don't know, it might actually be my favorite of them, just in terms of with the 2016 rules and the streamlined nature of it.
Okay.
Everything felt like it clicked. It worked thematically. I got the game. And as we always mention on the show, it always helps when I win.
Sure does.
And I ended up getting Eugene by a few points. And yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game. I enjoy some of the thematic aspects. I couldn't get over the fact that you have to issue press releases in the game. I just thought that was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't issued a press release by the end of this round, now do so. So I just thought that was absolutely hilarious. I liked how you have a limited number of barrels, and you have to get certain barrels by meeting requirements at the fair. You have to use those barrels efficiently to either sell to get money, or to place out to get points, or to keep to score on these magnate tiles that will get you certain end game points. I did really well with the magnate tiles. I had one. So some of these other ones max out at 16. The one I had didn't max out, but I was able to get 22 points off of it, which is a good chunk of points in that game. My end game scoring was what put me over the top. Eugene had done a little better than me in the fair and in some of the other placement, but the end game scoring just I went through the roof with a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
A lot of fun. The different regions add something cool to it. There's a lot here. This is a dense game for sure, but an enjoyable one. And I liked how weather affected things. I liked how different the timing of when you might go to the fair could be dependent on what tiles flipped up.
Sure.
And sometimes you're at the mercy of that. Absolutely at the mercy of that, because there's no chance for that to flip before the fair comes up. I enjoyed the amount of planning. It's definitely one of those strategic games that I was able to get into. I liked the Gallerist too. This felt better connected to its theme to me than the Gallerist.
Oh, really?
Did.
Huh,
I like the Gallerist.
Yeah.
Okay. This one I would be more readily willing to play again, especially now that I've gotten through the Teach, which with any Lacerda game, the Teach is tricky.
And I'm jonesing for the Gallerist. I'm also jonesing to play this game. Yeah. So, okay, 2 questions and then 1 statement.
Okay.
So, do you want the first question?
Do I have to answer 1 true, 1 false?
No.
Then, okay.
Okay. So first question is the main action selection component, right? It's a 3x3 grid, and it's kind of a spatial action selection.
Correct.
What'd you think of that?
I liked it.
Okay. Okay. Good. Excellent.
I thought it worked well in the game, and I thought it provided interesting decisions in that based on where the turn marker is, an action might be more expensive.
Right.
Based on whether someone else is there, an action might be more expensive. Based on how far you're going, an action might be expensive.
So it's not exclusive action selection, which is nice, but you're going to be paying a price for it.
You could be.
Okay. So second question is, the comparison to this and say a viticulture. Viticulture, it's your one winery that you're controlling versus this, you're kind of building a wine empire, right?
Right.
How's that comparison in your mind?
They play very, very differently.
Yes.
Viticulture there's definitely some long-term planning because you want to age wines properly and you want to get them to the right place. This one is pretty much all planning in a lot of ways. You only have 12 rounds, and there's going to be only 12 rounds. This one, compared to, I like Viticulture a lot. Like a lot.
Yeah.
Every time I play it, that one really grabs me, and it's easier to get into.
Oh, definitely.
I think the teachability edge goes to Viticulture, and I like how the summer and winter visitor cards play, how using a certain number of actions in one season affects how you use another. I think they're both very worthy and very different. They play differently enough where I think there's space for both in a collection.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think I'd still give Viticulture the edge.
Sure.
But I definitely enjoyed Vinhos more than I thought I was going to.
Okay. So in that vein, I kind of think of Viticulture as the art of winemaking and Vinhos as the business of winemaking.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. So then my statement, here we go. Vinhos, the 2016 edition on BGG, the current consensus on weight is 3.95. The 2010 weight, the consensus is 4.19. So almost a quarter of a point
Yeah.
higher.
I could see that, looking at the two different boards and looking at the two different rule sets.
Yeah. So you have played the 2016, but not the 2010. I've played the 2010, but not the 2016. I think it'll be interesting for one of us. It'll probably be more likely be me
Yep.
jumping to the 2016 to get that point of comparison. Like I said, I like having to pull all those levers and the difficulty of the fair, the difficulty of the bank. I like those rough edges kind of. So I don't know. We'll see.
And I like the streamlined nature, and I put streamlined in quotes because it's still a complex game for sure. There were actually several people who walked by the table and was like, "Wow, that looks complicated." And we're like, "Yep, it is.
Yep, sure is.
It's definitely complicated." And the other thing I would, what was also fun though is the thematic connection with Vinhos is definitely there. And I enjoyed. I was making the cheap wine. I had two different wineries just churning out that cheap wine.
Yeah.
I'd have to put farmers on there some turns just to make sure that they produced even a one wine token. But I was able to turn those in for awesome scoring tiles.
Hey, I'm sure Franzia makes a ton of money.
No, I was joking with Matthew the other day. This wine was so cheap, it wasn't just in a bag. This one was like soaked up into sponges and then like left on a store shelf. That's how that wine was sold. That's how cheap it was. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's weird.
Yeah, well, anyway. So that's Vinhos Deluxe. Back to you. Oh, wait, that's it. Over to the news. All right, first up, WizKids partnering with Lookout Games for some expansions for Agricola. Sean, more Uwe stuff.
Yeah, lots of Uwe stuff. So this is kind of an interesting partnership, and really, they're not expansions in the traditional sense. These are upgrade kits. There's 6 of them, and each one's going to have a couple new cards. And the press release from WizKids and Lookout didn't indicate what kind of cards, if they're occupation cards, or different building cards or whatever. But you're going to get some new ones designed by Uwe, but each expansion kit is going to have pre-painted minis, one for each color, each player color. So if you want all pre-painted minis, you're going to need to buy all 6 of these upgrade kits. And if you're a big Agricola fan and you want to bling out your game, you're also probably going to want all of the new cards, because my understanding is they're going to be different cards in each upgrade kit. So they're kind of spreading that out. Seems a little bit weird, this particular model, because maybe if you only play Agricola at 3 players, like in your group, it's only going to come out at 3 or 4, maybe only buy 3 or 4, and so you could save some money, but at the same time, you're probably going to want all of those new upgrade cards, I would think. So it's hard to say. So WizKids had to say this: "We're excited to work with Uwe and Lookout Games to bring new content to the Agricola franchise." This is from Justin Zirin, the president of WizKids. He goes on to say, "Lookout Games brings a legacy of quality, style, and innovative gameplay to the table, and we couldn't be happier to enhance Agricola with pre-painted figural," yeah, apparently that's a word, "and gameplay content." Is that a word? I'm gonna look up figural, because I don't believe that that's a word. Maybe it is. I mean, it could be. You can always make up words, right?
Is it a word?
Well, figural. Another term for figurative, or yes, another term for figurative.
Huh.
Okay.
Anyway, next up in news.
Wait, let's have some commentary.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So yeah, that's kind of a weird distribution model. I guess if you don't want all of the content, I guess you can go that route. There's no indication on price, so it's hard to kind of say. I mean, if these are, $4 a pop, that's still like 24. That's not terrible. But if it's like $10 a pop, now you're spending $60. I don't know that.
The completionist in everyone.
Yeah.
It'd be tough to just buy one. It's almost like you're going to have to probably buy all 6.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that.
Yeah. No, I couldn't. So I don't own Agricola. That's probably not going to happen anytime soon. I prefer Caverna, Fields of Arla, a bunch of other Uwe games. But yeah, if I had Agricola, I'd probably be buying all 6. And so we'll get some more details at some point. This is supposed to come out early 2017.
Very good. All right, next up, Games Workshop coming out with some build and paint sets. You can tell who did the news this week.
Yep.
I'll give you a hint, it wasn't me. Sean, what's going on with all this?
So I've talked about this before. I've worked for Games Workshop in the past, and their model at the time, or their goal, was total global domination. That's what they taught us. They wanted every 12-year-old boy, and that's what they said, every 12-year-old boy, because only boys can play miniature games apparently, to be playing Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Fantasy, whatever. But for a very long time, their business model hasn't really reflected that. They've counted on people with a lot of disposable income, not 12-year-olds, to be able to play these games. And it looks like they're trying to fix that. They're trying to bring down some prices, and they're trying to make some easier points of entry. They've always had their starter box sets, which have always been really reasonable in terms of price. You get a lot of value for what's in those starter boxes. But it was always a very difficult sell. Hey, here's this, this $60 starter box. Oh, okay, so that's everything he needs to paint or to play the game, right? I'm like, well, no, you're going to need some glue to put the figures together. You're going to need an X-Acto knife and some files, and you're going to need some paint and paint brushes. Hey, you're also going to need this $10 primer. So the $60 thing is actually like $120, $130 point of entry. And that's a tough sell. That's a tough sell for any parent. And this was 10, 15 years ago, right? So imagine, the prices now have risen exponentially. Well, not really exponentially, but they've risen a lot. So the idea here is that there are 6 new sets. This is their first run of these build and paint sets. So there's 3 sets for the Space Marines and 3 sets for the Orcs. So there's one set with some Terminators and a Dreadnought, a Land Speeder, and a Space Marine bike. The Orcs have some Orcs Raiders, which includes a Knob, some Orc Boys, and a Kilocopter. Which is
Kilocopter!
Yeah, it's a helicopter that's pretty great.
Yeah!
There's also some Truck Boys, and there's an Orc Blastabike. And so these all come with glue, a brush, and paints, and it looks like they each come with like 6 small pots of paint. And it's interesting. Is this going to help kind of increase their new gamer acquisition? I don't know. As I was looking this up, more info on their website, I came across something horrible, though. Just horrible. It's called The Burning of Prospero. It's a brand new Games Workshop board game with some amazing miniatures. It's $150, and it's the Horus Heresy, which is 10,000 years before the regular Warhammer 40,000 universe that we've all played in. Well, not we all.
We all.
The Ducal we. The Ducal we. And it features my very favorite Space Marine or Chaos Space Marine chapter, or Legion, the Thousand Sons, and has Ahriman, their Primus, and it has the Legio Custodes, who are the Emperor's Royal Guards, and it has the Sisters of Silence, and it looks amazing, and I haven't ordered it yet.
But you will.
But I probably will.
If you were to take every miniature you have and like lay it out in the living room or something, or just like lay them out, how much space of the house would it take up?
How much room in between each miniature? Are they all
enough to where they're not touching?
Okay. So we'll say 1-inch coherency,
Sure.
which is a rules term from Warhammer.
Excellent.
Oh, I don't know. It'd probably take up the whole living room.
Yeah.
I have a lot. I do have a lot.
And more as by the way, Kickstarter folks, if you just have anything that looks like it has a decent miniature, like you'd have like literally no game. It'd just be decent miniature, the Kickstarter.
No, that's not true.
Sean would pick it up.
No, that's not true. That's totally untrue. That's completely false.
Okay.
If it's a cool mini or not game, now that's different. No, but so here's my concern about the Burning of Prospero. So I look at a Games Workshop board game like Space Hulk, which is awesome. It's super good. And then I look at something like the new Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, which I did not like the gameplay at all. The more I've thought about it, the more I dislike it. $150 is not a bad price for all of these amazing exclusive miniatures. Some miniatures that I've wanted to have for a very long time, and I'm just worried that the gameplay is not going to quite hold up to it. So it's kind of a risky proposition. Oh, and right before we recorded, we got a late start because Matthew messaged me and he said, "Hey, Food Chain Magnate's available for cheap on Card House." So I had to buy that.
And then fill out the order.
Yeah, I had to find $25 more bucks. So I got that and Ice Cool. So thanks, Matthew.
Ice Cool.
For the update.
By the way, Space Hulk, if you just change one letter, it's the space-themed expansion for Heartthrob, Space Hunk.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
All right, great.
Yeah.
That's
helpful.
It's good commentary, Alex.
All right, always happy to help.
So anyway, that's Games Workshop build and paint sets, and I guess they're Burning of Prospero, and I hate my life. Go on.
All right, over to Kickstarter. This week we're talking about Leaders of Euphoria, Choose a Better Oppressor. Sean, what's the backstory here?
So this is from our buddies over at Overworld Games, and they are doing this in conjunction. They've licensed the World of Euphoria from Stonemaier Games. And so this is basically good cop, bad cop with a retheming. And we got a copy of it from Brian and Clayton over at Overworld Games. So we were able to, I was able to play it.
Ducal Wii.
Yeah, Ducal Wii. And so this is up on Kickstarter right now. And it's if you like good cop, bad cop, you're going to like this. The idea behind the gameplay is that you are on one faction or another. You're either on the Euphorians or the Subterrans. And so this is Jamie Stegmaier's dystopian future from the game Euphoria, which is awesome. And you're going to get dealt 3 cards. And those cards are going to be either one of those factions. And you are the majority of your cards. So if I get a Subterran, Euphorian card, I'm Subterran. However, the Subterran has a leader and the Euphorian has a leader. And if you get either of those leader cards, it overrides whatever you might be by majority. You are the Subterran leader. Gameplay is pretty simple. You're going to go around and you're going to investigate or interrogate, I think is the term they use in this new version. You interrogate another player by looking at one of their cards. So you might see a Subterran card. Well, that doesn't necessarily tell you anything because their other 2 cards might be Euphorian or they might have the Euphorian leader, but you're gaining some more information and you're trying to find your enemy leader and eliminate them. Because one of the other actions you can take is to pick up a ray gun, which are these nice little chits. And eventually you can then shoot someone. If they're a leader, they need to be shot twice before they're eliminated. Now, it seems like that's pretty simplistic gameplay, but it's not because you have these different artifact cards that really spice things up. These were the equipment cards from Good Cop, Bad Cop, and they add a lot of chaos to the game. And I think that's the easiest way to describe it. You have to be okay with this amount of chaos, which I am for this length of play. I mean, each game takes 10 minutes, if that. So if this were an hour-long game, this amount of chaos would be far too much. But it's kind of like Cold Express, where I'm okay with the chaos for the theme and for the length of play and for the style of play. So I mean, we both liked Good Cop, Bad Cop, and I enjoyed my plays of Leaders of Euphoria. I thought it was really solid. I think what's better about this than the original Good Cop, Bad Cop, 2 things. Number 1, I like the theme a lot better. I mean, the Good Cop, Bad Cop makes a lot of sense, but I like the theme here. I've always loved the Euphorian theme, or Euphoria theme. And the artifact cards are pretty cool because they're very tongue-in-cheek. So, for example, one's called a hunting spear. These are ancient artifacts, right? One's called a hunting spear, but it's actually a coat rack from a past civilization.
Huh.
There's the throne, which is actually just kind of a Barca Lounge recliner. There's a gem cleanser, which is just a toilet and a strainer.
Huh.
Because apparently, I don't know what they do to relieve themselves of waste in the future. And then finally, there's like an energy reflector, which is a metal trash can lid. So I think there's some enjoyment from seeing some of those. And so then the other thing that I like about this is there is no player elimination like in Good Cop, Bad Cop. Instead, you become the third faction, the Wastelanders. And it's very hard for you to win at that point. But if you ever get swapped a leader card of either faction, you become the winner, or you win immediately. So not super likely to happen. I mean, there are cards that will do that, but at least you're still not completely out of the game and you can still participate in the game. So that's kind of cool. Now, there are 2 versions of this. There's the $20 standard edition. There's the $29 deluxe edition. This also is there's going to be some shipping. I think it's $5 here in the US. Here's what's really cool about the deluxe edition. The deluxe edition, you get player mats. And these player mats, you're like, well, why do I really need this? Because they're kind of T-shaped. Your cards go at the top, and then the handle of the T, the bottom of the T, has the player reference. But when someone asks to interrogate you, you can pick up the player mat by the handle of the T, and you can hand it over to them, and then they're able to look at the card. That may not sound like a big deal, but you know how whenever we're passing cards in these kind of games, we're like, keep it low, don't let anyone see that. This facilitates that.
Interesting.
It's very cool. Plus, you get these big, chunky plastic ray gun miniatures to upgrade the chits that you get otherwise. So it looks really cool. So $20 standard, $29 deluxe. Currently, it's at $35,000 of its $20,000 goal. If you like Good Cop, Bad Cop, definitely check this out. If you like, it's not a full social deduction game. There's a little bit too much chaos for me to call it that, but it's a game that I enjoy. I know you enjoyed, Alex. So go ahead and check that out. It ends November 19th, 2016. Very worthwhile game. I enjoyed my plays of it so far. And I enjoy Good Cop, Bad Cop, so.
I'm looking forward to trying it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So that's our Kickstarter, Leaders of Euphoria, Choose a Better Oppressor, and that is a look at the news.
So, Alex, what would you say is your top game so far of 2016?
Urban Garage, Sean, it's Scythe.
Oh, you like that one, do you?
I do like Scythe.
Yeah, me too.
But you know what, Sean?
Yeah.
A big obstacle is setting up and breaking down that game.
It sure is. In fact, Jamie Stegmaier even has to put on the side of the box where stuff goes, but even then you've got all these bags, all these containers. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
But fortunately, our buddies over at Meeple Realty, Lee and Tommy, have put together an amazing scythe insert that not only fits all of the pieces for the base game, whether it's the basic edition, whether it's the collector's edition, but it also is going to hold the pieces for the expansion, Invaders from Afar.
Very cool. So if you need some better way of storing scythe, give Meeple Realty a look. Meeple Realty, think inside the box. All right, this week we are going way, way down in the hole for a game. It's a little tricky to pronounce. It's Haspelknecht.
So Haspelknecht is the brand new game from Capstone Games. And when I say brand new, it's actually a reprint, a new edition of it from Thomas Spitzer. Now, Haspelknecht is a game of early coal mining in the Ruhr Valley of Germany back in, the 1600s, 1700s?
Sure, you could make up a century and I'd probably buy it.
So this is a very interesting action selection game where you have discovered coal for the first time and you are learning the ways to mine it from the ground. And in this game, it lasts 3 rounds, and in each round there are 3 action phases, and then there's one kind of winter cleanup phase, or really, I guess we should call them seasons.
Yeah,
it's seasons. So 9 action rounds in all. And you have your player board, which has your little plot of land with the coal that's on the surface. And then once you clear that coal on the surface, you're able to go down deep into the mine and get some more coal, which is going to get you some more points, and then potentially some endgame scoring if you have the right technology tiles. In the middle of the board, or in the middle of the table, you're going to put out the action selection board, where there are going to be these brown, yellow, and black discs in these different compartments. There's also going to be a tracker, which tracks the points, it tracks the round, and all of that good stuff. And then finally, what I think is the heart of the game, you're going to put out these different hexagonal tiles, which are the different technology tiles. And it depends on the number of players. There are 4 levels. There's a bunch of green tiles, yellow tiles, gray, and brown tiles. They get progressively more expensive the farther down they go. And you're going to be putting your player discs on them as you gain these technologies. It's a tech tree because you're basically building off of yourself or sometimes building off of others. Each of the rounds are going to look like this. You're going to, in a year, you're going to get some pinge water twice. There are these 2 rainy portions of the season. And pinge water is going to go into your mine or to your surface. And if you have a certain amount of pinge water, you're unable to mine. And later on, when you're building your mine, a certain amount of pinge water, you're unable to bring coal that you've mined up to the surface. So you got to watch out for that. And then what you're going to do in turn order is you're going to select some of these action tiles. There are 6 in each compartment, and there's a different compartment for each player. And you're going to be able to select any number of one color from a particular compartment, but you have to take all of them. And so you're going to go through until you each have up to 5. You may get less depending on what people have taken in front of you. And also depending on which tile or which compartment you take from, you might also get some pinge water. Now, these different color tiles are going to let you do different things. So the yellow is going to let you get some wheat, which can also trigger some other actions. The black is going to let you mine coal or remove pinge water. The brown's going to let you get wood because you need wood to strengthen your mine, to build out the mine. And then you can also spend different combinations with your farmer, because you have 2 different action spots, to go claim different tiles, different technology tiles. And these technology tiles are going to be worth points. The sooner you get to one, the more points you're going to get. So like the top tier, the first player is going to get 1 point and then nothing. The very bottom tiles, the first player is going to get 4 points, the next player 3 points, and then 2 points. You also want to get there first because as players stack on top of you, they're going to have to give you some type of resource depending on which level you're on. There's some interesting things with which of the tiles you take first. It affects turn order, which is a big part of the game because you want to be first to those tiles. Some of the tiles are going to give you some bonuses as well. So it might be some ongoing thing, like maybe I'm no longer affected by the seasonal pinge water, which is pretty important. Or it might give you some new action spaces, which you can then turn, say, wood into coal, or turn different discs into money. So it gives you some different options there. There's also some endgame technology tiles. They're going to say for every of this type of technology, you're going to score a point, or for every certain sections of the mine that you cleared out, you're going to get points. A lot going on here. It's a pretty difficult game to explain, even with the board out in front of you, I think. but once you get going, it's not too bad. So I've missed a lot of the rules there, but hopefully that's enough to kind of give some context for what we're talking about here. So, Alex, what'd you think of Haspelknecht?
Haspelknecht is a very interesting puzzle, and I like how thematic the game is. It uses this idea of selecting discs of different colors, not being able to quite do everything. It uses that core of selecting discs to do a lot of cool and interesting things, whether that be determining turn order, whether that be determining what kind of actions you can use. But it's one of those where you're constantly planning out each turn because you only have 9 of them to work with. You have to make every turn count, and you have to use discs as efficiently as you possibly can. I like that. Well, we had different. I had different play experiences at this. At 4 players it was a completely different game in some ways to me than at 3 players. I enjoy that there's multiple ways to win this and multiple approaches you can take to this. I think there's an interesting puzzle here. I don't know if I'm necessarily in love with the game overall, but I enjoyed it well enough at the right player count. It's one of those where the conditions have to be just right for this game. Those are my initial thoughts. Sean?
Yeah. No, I enjoyed this too. I got to play this at all the player counts, 2, 3, and 4. And while I think I prefer 3, I think that's my preferred player count, I'm still willing to play it at 4. 2, I wasn't particularly crazy about. But I think the big takeaway here is that this is a very tight game. There's a lot of stuff you want to do, and you can't do as much as you would like. And it feels very tight. It feels very constricted. You do have to kind of not feed your workers, but you have to pay the feudal lord at the end of a round. And that involves paying some amount of gold and wheat. And that's pretty punishing because it takes a lot of effort to get some of those things. A lot of your points, though, are coming from those technology tiles, but also from how much coal you've actually been able to mine. And you need at least 3 coal at the end of a season, or the end of a year rather, to get any points. 3 gets you 2 points, then it's an extra point from there on out. But what's really interesting is you pretty much have to wipe your board. You're only allowed to keep 1 resource from 1 year to the next, unless you build some of the building tiles, some of those technologies that give you additional resources or additional storage. But even then, it's still only 1 at a time. So it's kind of interesting where you have to be very careful how you're using your resources. Otherwise, you're going to have an excess of them. And coal, you're going to do that because you're primarily looking to score points at the end of a year. But overall, I like this game quite a bit. It is, like you said, a very interesting puzzle. There's a lot of different ways to play this game, a lot of different ways to win. I think that we were concerned that it was just rushing the tech.
Right, tech tree was too dominant.
Because in our first game, that seemed to be the case. But in subsequent plays, I don't think that's the case. I think it's heavily dependent on the layout of those tiles and how everyone else is kind of approaching that tech tree. But we'll talk more about gameplay.
I think it's one where having limited options when you have a 3-player game actually improves the experience.
Could be.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll talk that through a little more.
So did you have a chance to go through the rulebook at all?
I had to look things up in it occasionally, but I didn't learn the game from the rulebook.
Okay. Well, what was your experience of looking up rules in the rulebook?
It was easy enough to find what we needed to find.
Okay. So I feel like this reminds me of an Uwe rulebook in that it was easy to learn the game from the rulebook. Now Matthew did teach us the game, but I did go back and read through the rulebook, and it looks like it lays it out in a pretty logical manner, which I think I'd be able to learn the game from the rulebook pretty effectively. I felt like I did have some trouble going back and looking up those rules to reference. That's what I mean when I say it's an Uwe style rulebook. I think Uwe does a great job of teaching the game, but the referential aspect of it's kind of difficult. There were also some rules that were unclear that we had to go to BGG for help on. One of them,
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, there was
right.
the building tile that lets you turn 2 wood into coal and a point. It wasn't quite clear if that was once a round or if it required
a disc of some kind. Yeah,
and so there's been some clarification on BGG. But overall, I think it's a fine rule book. Oh, by the way, let's put this out there in the open. This was a review copy from our friends over at Capstone Games. So just to put that on the table so everyone's aware. So let's talk a little bit about components and art. Let's talk about the art first, Alex. What do you think about this art style?
Yeah, it's I don't know what's the right way to describe it. It's and we're always bad at describing art in these games, like just terrible. I'll go with components first because I want to avoid talking about art initially. The discs are fine. They're clear and they fit nicely onto whatever space you might use them on. The coal are just these little black cubes. The wood are these longer brown sticks.
Yep.
Hey, it is what it is.
It's classic Eurogame components.
The wheat, it looks like what you would expect wheat to look like.
It's a weeple. Wheat pole.
Right. It's not super fiddly. It could have been fiddly. I didn't find it to be that fiddly as a game. There's places to store everything properly. There's little spots on your board to lay everything out. The coal starts on your board. All of the coal that you might potentially mine starts on your board. There's a little section where you're laying over another board when you kind of go to a different phase. Once you clear out your top level of coal, you put on something else, and there's a different action board that comes out. I thought that was well done. I thought it all connected pretty well, and it was pretty, for the most part, pretty easy to see what every space did at all times. I liked the layout of the tech tree, where you can kind of see, okay, if I place here first, I'm going to get a certain number of points. Whoever places next gets this, but has to pay this amount to someone else, and so on and so forth. I thought that was laid out very clearly for something that could have bogged the game down if it wasn't laid out clearly in the components. So, yeah, nothing that's super stand out, but I think it does a fine job with this game for sure. It as we'll talk about later, it feels thematic, and I think it lends itself to that feel.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's the components are very functional. They're very good. The hexes are clear. I like the fact that it's modular, that it's not a set board, because those hexes, you're going to see different ones. In lower player counts, you're not going to see all of them, right? So it's going to produce a different experience. Also, the way they lay out and interact with one another is going to be different from game to game. So yeah, I think component wise, I think it's pretty solid. Now, as far as the art goes, I like the art. The art's really different. It's okay. So I mean, you'll see if you look on the show image, you'll see a picture of the box, and it's it looks like, is it watercolor? Is it like a watercolor?
Yeah.
There's
and the word that comes to mind, and it's probably dead wrong.
Okay.
Is Gothic.
Yeah, I don't think that's a Gothic style.
Okay.
Yep. Nope.
Carry on.
But it uses like some interesting inking, and then it looks like this watercolor art. It's very interesting looking as far as the box cover goes. And then it uses that same style of art on the board. So on your player board, it's really nice. You have your little farmstead, and you have then the underground coal mining section. There are little roads that go off the end of your player board's serrated, because basically your buildings kind of fit in, a little triangular piece fits in, and the little roads connect to those. So I think it looks really good. It looks different though. It's a very different art style, but I like it. I enjoy that differentness.
To go back to components, this is definitely a bit of a beast in terms of setup and breakdown, I think, because you have the individual little tiles that have to go on each of those tech spots that you're using.
Sure.
In addition to making sure all of the little pieces of coal go everywhere on your board. Once it's set up, there's not a ton of that fiddliness that you have in this game, but the setup itself does take a good chunk of time.
Okay. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I definitely agree with that. All right, so did this feel like a punishing gameplay experience to you, Alex?
It's definitely riding that line for sure, because of those debt tokens that you could potentially accumulate at the end of different rounds. There are certainly turns where you feel clever, where you've gotten a bunch of tiles. I've gotten to this. I was able to chain this into this thing. I was able to mine this much coal out. But it's definitely a game where you feel like you're fighting against the tide for sure.
Sure.
Hey, the round's running out. I got to get enough food. Hey, I needed this food to do this action. And oh no, I'm just one wood short of being able to mine this section. Man, that plan didn't work out as well as I thought it did. Oh no, someone beat me to that space. Now I have to pay them a coal if I want to use that tech spot, which I absolutely need to use for points. So there's a lot of those very, very hard decisions that come about in this game.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And it sounds like when you have to pay someone a resource, in a lot of games, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal. But when you consider that you're on average getting like 4 or 5 discs, 4 or 5 actions, and
they're not all pure actions because you have to use them all for the same thing.
Right. So exactly. So for example, let's say that I wind up a turn, or I wind up that action selection phase with 2 gold discs and 3 black discs. So here are my options. I can. There's the farmer and the farmhand. They both can do almost identical things, except the farmer is able to get you those technology tiles. There's also There's also the miner, where you can spend a gold disc, a piece of gold, or a wheat to allow you to work stuff on the surface where he's getting rid of pinch water or doing coal. So that's a little bit more efficient, but it's still a gold disc. So maybe I decide that my farmer is going to use all 3 black discs, and I'm going to take one of the gold discs and put it on that miner guy, and the other gold disc is going to go on my farmhand. So now I'm going to get 1 wheat from the farmhand. I'm going to maybe use those 3 black to get a 3 technology cost tile, or maybe I'm just going to use him to go crazy mining.
Right.
And then I'm going to use the miner to clear some pinch water and remove some coal. Now, doesn't sound that difficult, but when you really think about what you need for that particular turn or in subsequent seasons, maybe you say, oh man, I really need to get working on that coal, or instead I need to split up my gold because maybe there's one tile that needs 1 gold and 2 other of another of any color, for example. And so there's some very difficult decisions here. And I don't feel like I had too much AP until maybe the last round, that last year.
To maximize points.
Exactly. So very difficult decisions because this game is so tight. It can feel a little punishing. I'm okay with that, though. I like when games can make me feel punishing. I know you tend to like it when a game makes you feel liberated and lets you...
Powerful rather than powerless.
Yeah.
And this is definitely closer to the powerless side of things.
And I think that's just a matter of taste. I like that stress of, oh my God, how am I going to do all of this? How am I going to, pay for my feudal lord? Otherwise, I'm going to get these debt tokens. Is it worthwhile to not pay him one of them? Because you get a debt token for each of the 3 items that you can't provide. And maybe I just take 2 debt tokens and that's going to be worth, -3 points, but I'm going to score 6 points by doing this instead. So I'm going to net more points. It can be tough and it can feel pretty punishing, but that's a matter of taste. I enjoy that. But apparently it doesn't feel too punishing because it's still enjoyable enough for you.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
It doesn't grind you into the dirt.
Sure.
But I can tell you could have a very bad game of this very easily.
Yeah.
Very, very easily. If you're not paying attention, you're not focused, you mess up a couple actions early, there's a chance you could have some problems. Especially if you get behind on the tech tree in a way that isn't going to work. And you're paying everyone points for the rest, or not points, but goods, and getting fewer points for the rest of the game. You're going to have some issues. So the balancing act of that is very interesting. I like the dance that you have with a turn order, where depending on what discs you take will affect the turn order for future rounds.
So I didn't explain that, so let's explain that real quick. So basically, for every disc you take, you're assigned a point based on what kind of disc it is. Coal is worth 1, or black is worth 1, brown is worth 2, gold is worth 3 points. And so if I've taken 3 black discs, I have 3 points for turn order priority. If Alex, you take 2 brown discs, you have 4 points. So I'm going to be able to go ahead of you when we're actually doing the action, or when we're actually executing the actions and potentially taking the tech tiles.
Right. And additionally, for future rounds, when you make that initial draft,
right,
which can be important because
very important. On
some of those, you're going to get pinch water if you take from the wrong bucket of stuff.
Yeah. So I like that tempo aspect of the game. I feel like that's a bigger component of the gameplay than you might realize. And if you're ignoring that, I think you're not going to do well.
Right.
And not always caring, I need to go first, but maybe I know that we're both in contention for this particular tech tile, and so I need to make sure I go in front of Alex.
Yeah.
But other times it may not matter because I just want to grab, look at those 4 gold discs. I'm definitely going last, but I can't pass up that because I need...
That's huge, and it gives me a ton of food.
Yeah.
Because the other consideration is in certain seasons, you get more food if you use specifically your farmer to do a specific action.
Not your farm hand, like you said, has to specifically be the farmer that uses the gold discs.
Which means, unless you've upgraded your other guy, which that tech tile may not even be out,
right,
you're not going to be getting tech that round if you want that extra food.
Right, because there is a tech tile that upgrades your farm hand into another farmer, essentially.
And then it's easy to overlook something like wood, and then all of a sudden you're 1 wood short of being able to have a really efficient mining turn.
Yeah.
And you're a little lost.
Uh-huh.
So it's one of those where the values seem it's tough to tell exactly how valuable things are going to be, especially because everything wipes between rounds.
Yeah.
Having an excess of stuff isn't necessarily the best route.
Right.
You want to be building things in. You want to be getting points. If you just mine 2 coal, you're wasting stuff. You're wasting 2 coal. You wasted those actions. So a lot of interesting decisions, and not to mention managing the pinch water all throughout. That, oh man, I can't even do stuff if I don't get this stuff cleared out, and it's negative points at the end of the game.
Right.
So we were talking about multiple paths to victory, by the way, and you had an interesting approach last time where I think you could legitimately say you were experimenting at least a little.
Yeah.
In the 3-player game.
Yeah, I was. So one of the things I love in Euro games is when there is this kind of tech tree. Kemet has that where you have these different tech tiles, and so I really enjoy where you are kind of changing your play experience, and it's different from a lot of other players based on what technologies you're choosing. I love that in games. That's probably one of my favorite things about certain games. So in our first gameplay of this, it was a 4-player game, you, me, Raquel, and Matthew, and Raquel was just dominating the tech tree. She was getting to all the tiles first. She was racking up the points. She was getting a bunch of resources from us having to pay her off, and she handily beat us. And so I'm like, oh, that seems problematic. Is this whole game about just, getting to the tech tree first? And we talked about it a little bit just from, extrapolating from that one experience. And maybe it's a matter of some of us didn't prioritize the tech tree enough, or some of us shouldn't have gone to some of the tiles that we did, giving her the resources, and we maybe needed to kind of diversify from what she was doing. So the next play that you and I were on together, this was a 3-player game. And I said, all right, I'm going to ignore my player board. All I'm going to focus on is the tech tree.
And if you get some benefits that help your player board out, so be it.
Exactly. And in that game, I came in second behind you, 6 points. You had a pretty decent presence on the tech tree, but you had a much more balanced approach. But I think also that you were more focused on which tech tiles you got. We had all 4 of the buildings.
It was definitely building heavy.
Right. And so if you have 1 building at the end of the game, that's a bonus point, and it's geometric after that. So it's 1, and then you get 3 for 2, 6 for 3, and 10 points, and you had all 4, 10 points for 4. So I think, and I've played since, and the 2-player game I played of it was kind of Raquel and I dueling for the different tech tree positions, and I was always 1 step ahead of her. And I feel like she continued to just kind of trail behind me. And had she instead decided to kind of abandon the tech tree or just be more selective, she may have done better. But I wound up winning that game. But ultimately, I don't think it's an all or nothing proposition with that tech tree. I think it's very dependent on the setup of the tiles. I think you do need to sit down and take a couple minutes and look at the board, because basically you can place anywhere at the top, and then your next piece needs to be adjacent to a place that you've already placed or on top of where someone already else is. So they build off each other. That's why it's a tech tree and not just different random tech tiles.
But they're not necessarily connected directly in that this is a prerequisite for this.
Exactly.
Just based on the setup, that's how it might be, but those are randomly assigned.
Exactly. So I have less of a concern that it's all about racing that tech tree. I think it just depends. It depends on what strategy you're using. And there are very different paths. Very, very much so, there are different paths to victory in this game.
I worry that the game can potentially be fragile in a sense. And what I mean by that is I've already had an experience where it kind of broke a little at 4 players. I wouldn't surprise me if it has the same problem at 2 players. Mm-hmm. At 3, I can see it being just the right amount of tech stuff out. But if that tech tree is arranged in just a different way, is it possible that someone can just burn their path straight down through it?
Right.
And just crush everyone off of that.
Right. And I don't think so. I think part of the problem with the 4-player play that we had is that there were 3 new players and we're all kind of learning the game, and we didn't prioritize things correctly. Like, I completely avoided the tech tree. I think I had maybe like 3 things.
Yeah.
And I think you want to be shooting for like 6 to 8.
And I think you were dead last in that game by
quite
a good amount.
By quite a bit. So had I been involved more in the tech tree, that possibly would have cut Raquel off and slowed her down. I don't think she would have lost the game, but yeah, no, I'm not super concerned with broken play experiences. I do think that 3 is probably the sweet spot. I will probably not play this at 2, but I won't turn down a 4-player play of it either.
I would probably turn down a 4-player play, and based off of what you were saying, I'd probably turn down a 2-player play.
Okay.
I probably just want to play this one at 3 players.
Yeah.
And that's usually not how I am. Usually I actually have a diverser desire for instance, we talk about this with Smash Up all the time.
Yeah.
Smash Up, you will only play
only with 3.
Only with 3 players. Whereas 2, 3, 4 doesn't matter to me. I love that game at any player count. This is one where I'm very specific and going to be very picky about. It has to be 3 players.
Right.
And I do have some fear, and I don't know if it's a founded one, that the arranging of the tech tree could be problematic. Now, that being said, there's mitigation for that. You can adjust turn order. You can try and draft differently to have an effect on that. I'd be cautious on that front. So, yeah.
Okay. So real quick, before we jump into theme, just do want to talk about those different player counts. One thing that's interesting is you have in each level, so there are always 4 levels, you have 3 tiles in each level for 2 players, and then 4 for 3, 5 for 4 players. I think, and I might agree with you, that at 4 players, it seemed a little bit too open, and at 3 players, you thought it was kind of just right.
Just right.
At 2 players, it felt incredibly limiting, because you only had 3 tiles per type. And you're missing a bunch of the different buildings. You're not seeing everything that's available, which is a good and a bad thing, I think. which is why I'm not particularly crazy about 2 players. But 3 is the sweet spot, but I like 4. So we've kind of hammered that point
Beat that
home.
one to death.
Yeah, we sure did. So let's talk about theme. Let's talk about Haspelknecht. The entire game is named after a small board that you place on your player board once you have completed the surface level coal mining, right? It's the Haspelknecht is the guy that sits at the top of the mine shaft.
Is he the Haspeller?
I think he's the Haspelknechter.
That's it. That's his. Oh, really?
Haspelknecht.
Ah.
I think, yeah. He reels up a bucket of pinch water or coal that's been gathered. That's what the entire game is named for. So I looked up what Haspelknecht means, and apparently in German it means creepy. But in so this is thanks to Google Translate. But in Dutch it means real servant. REEL. The servant who
right. Yeah, it makes
operates
sense.
The reel. So it's just interesting that that the entire game is named for that one piece that isn't even on your player board to begin with, and gets added on if you even clear your surface coal mining, which
you might not do.
Which I've done one game where I haven't done that. So that's kind of interesting. So what do you think about the thematics of this game?
It definitely has a thematic connection for sure. It felt a lot in that way like Pay Dirt.
Okay.
Where there's sort of that. There's some amount of planning, things progress, the board progresses, things move, you upgrade. It's not really you're upgrading because it's more tech tree stuff.
Sure.
But you're advancing. There's some feeling of advancement to this game, feeling of digging coal out of the earth, building these posts of support. And I like how I think Raquel may have asked this a couple of times. And I think Rory asked this too.
Yeah.
Can you take the posts from that you've initially placed out from support and move them down further in the mine to use them again for that? No, absolutely not. The whole thing's going to collapse and you're all going to die. And the rules of that fit thematically, and it works thematically.
Right.
So I think the thematic connection on this game is actually quite strong.
And I like the idea that as water is being added to the mine, at a certain point, you have to get rid of it because you can't continue mine operations because everyone's going to drown and they haven't created scuba equipment yet. So
I do find it completely ironic, though, that in order to avoid the rainy seasons, the technology that lets you do that is a bucket.
Okay.
It's just one bucket, or a giant, as we were talking about, a giant bucket that covers the entire surface of your mine from up top. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly the technological connection there too.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of thematic connection between the gameplay and I think there is a lot of connection between the gameplay and the theme. I think it all kind of makes a certain amount of sense. I like that you have to pay your feudal lord, and that all makes sense. And I guess this isn't necessarily the place to talk about it, but I don't know where else to talk about this, is the name itself, Haspelknecht. It's, I get why it was used. I get why Capstone kept it as this. But it's difficult to spell. It's difficult to pronounce. It's difficult to look up on BGG. And I think there might be a large cross-section of players that might see this title and might look past it because they're just not familiar with it.
Sure.
And I mean, they added the subtitle, Haspelknecht, a story of early coal mining. I don't know that that's necessarily enough. I feel like that might be a turnoff for some players. Who haven't looked into the game, who haven't listened to reviews about it. They just happen to see it on a shelf or look at it on a screen, looking to fulfill to fill out an order. So that's kind of problematic, and I hope that doesn't hold back the game, because I think it's a very solid, really enjoyable game.
Imagine if it were called something like Coal Pioneer.
Yeah,
or something like that may not be the best.
Yeah, it's
name.
A little generic, but
even that. It might have gotten better attention, or someone might understand, oh, I get this. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that name definitely will hold it back.
So as they're re-releasing this game, this is part of the Coal Trilogy by Thomas Spitzer, and this is the lighter game of the 3, right? So the other games are Coal and Colony. Right now, it's spelled Kohle and Kollonie, and the other one is Ruhrschifffahrt. So,
okay.
Apologies to our German listeners for our butchering of your language. So yeah, what they've thought of as far as the branding and the naming and things like that for the other games in the trilogy. I'm very excited to play these other games. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. It might have some problems with broad mass appeal. Not mass appeal, because we're in a very small niche hobby, but within our hobby,
even
that appeal.
Yeah.
So But yeah, I think it's a very solid game. So in that sense, let's go into our final thoughts. You went last time first.
So graciously,
you went first last time, right? So I'll go first this time. So if you don't know, the Dukes of Dice over here, we operate with a 6-point scale. A 1 is not great. It's poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. Whereas on the other end, a 6 is an all-time favorite that is a contender for the top 10. So it's definitely between a 4 and a 5 for me. And I think when I have to come down on a final score, it's going to be a 4. It is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. Definitely going to keep this in the collection. I do enjoy this game quite a bit. More likely to play it at 3 than 4. Probably not likely to play it at 2, but still won't turn down 4. Okay, I feel like that's the 12th time I mentioned that, so sorry. But yeah, I think it's a very solid game. There are a lot of aspects to this puzzle that I like. It was close to a 5, but it's going to stay a very solid 4.
So off of my initial play of this, I had told you between a 3 and a 4, probably. Yeah. And it would have probably wound up at a 3 after that first play. Mm-hmm. In subsequent plays, it firmly brings it up just to a 4. That is, just like you said, a good game. Worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy.
Yeah.
I think that fits the bill for the experience of this. It's one where you obviously have to have the right play group. You have to have folks who are gamers. This is, if you couldn't tell from listening to the episode, this is not Gateway.
Oh, yeah.
Or anywhere close. So if you have the right group, if you're playing it at 3, I think there's a lot to love here.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think, as I mentioned, it could be a bit of a fragile play experience. And so while I'm giving it a 4, it's a hesitant 4.
Okay.
It's a 4 where I'm like, I wonder how much I'm actually going to play this in the coming year, and I worry that you could have some sour play experiences depending on how things are laid out.
And I look at a game like Le Grand Ha, which was a game that you enjoyed well enough, but this is kind of that weight and that style of game that you may be less likely to play as time goes on.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Ultimately, give it a 4.
All right, well, that's going to do it then for our review of Haspelknecht from Capstone Games, a solid high 4 for Sean and barely a 4 for Alex.
Yeah.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double-Take.
This week in our Dukes Double-Take, we're looking back to episode 64, Power Creep. This was one where we reviewed Escape Zombie City and took a look back at Power Grid, so hence where that name came from.
Oh yeah, this is supposed to be our Halloween episode. Boo!
Yeah, no, you had I actually listened back to this. You had an intro to this that was Halloween-y. The Books of Dice, like a lot of puns like that. And then I just jumped in and said, no, it's too late. We were recording it on Halloween, I think, but the episode was set to air after Halloween.
Right.
What's interesting about this one is we're not doing any of the Halloween-y kind of stuff, really, even though this episode's set to release exactly on Halloween. Yeah. So happy Halloween, everyone.
Boo! See, that's just, give us a boo, Alex.
Ooh. That wasn't a boo, but it was something else.
Okay.
I'm crazy for David Pumpkins.
David S. Pumpkins.
David S. Pumpkins. Worth looking up, by the way, if you haven't already.
I'm my own thing.
I'm my own thing. And the skeletons are part of it. Yeah, I've watched that at least 10 times.
Saturday Night Live, Tom
more.
Hanks, really funny.
Look it up. It's incredibly funny, I think.
So
anyway,
what do we think about Escape Zombie City?
So at the time, Sean, you gave it a 4. You said not super crazy about it, but like having it around, and it's a situational game.
Yeah.
It's a game where you could see yourself breaking out in the right situation. I was pretty much on the same page as you with that. I ultimately gave it a 4 as well. So a pair of 4s on Escape Zombie City. Obviously, the comparisons come up with Escape Curse of the Temple. This is one where you're driving around town, fighting off zombies, etc., etc. With different scenarios. I think there was a hint at the time of, this might get a little stale at some point.
Yeah.
So, Sean, where are you now on Escape Zombie City? Have you played it in the years since?
I have not. Have
you wanted to?
Not particularly, because I think it kind of, it's how we described it as it's very situational. It's something that I'm going to keep in my collection because I like knowing that it's a real-time game. It's pretty quick and easy, and it only plays 10, 15 minutes. The setup isn't too bad. I like having it there for that role that it fulfills, but I haven't thought to bring it out. I'm hesitant to drop it down to a 3. So a 3 would be, game is okay, not exciting, while playing the right situation, whereas the 4, like we've already said, good game worth playing just all the time, belongs in the duchy. I mean, if I'm keeping it at a 4 just because I'm keeping the game, and that's kind of the difference between a 3 and a 4. It's a 3. It's a 3 that is going to stay in the duchy, but it's a 3. Game is okay, not exciting. We'll play in the right situation.
So when I'm thinking about this compared to other real-time games, and to be specific, real-time cooperative games, because if we're talking real-time purely, Captain Sonar recently has just blown this, would blow this out of the water. But again, they're different games.
Yeah.
That's a real-time competitive team game. This is a real-time cooperative game. I have played recently Space Alert, and I'd be curious to dive more into Vlaada Chvátil's Space Alert as we go forward. That one strikes me as possibly a more interesting form of this, equally stressful because it's also real-time, but not with the dice rolling. Having thought of it, ultimately I haven't had any real desire to break this out, even with newer gamers. And not that I own this in my collection, but I think Empire does have it there. I think I'm ultimately there with you, Sean, at a 3. It's just too situational. It just doesn't come out often enough.
Right.
And I'd have a hard time thinking of the exact right situation where it would come out. Certainly there's some Halloween-y thematic gameplay there, and certainly it might be more likely to come out now or when Walking Dead is super hot, which I guess both of those are the case now.
Don't get me started on Walking Dead.
Okay. I haven't watched in like 2 seasons, so I'm way behind anyway. And
well, season 7, episode 1 just dropped last week.
Right. Then someone died, and it was a big deal. And I'd say spoiler alert, but people die all the time on that show.
I have no comment. I have absolutely no comment.
Fair enough. Ultimately, that is our Dukes Double-Take of Escape Zombie City. Sean drops it from a 4 to a 3, and I follow right in lockstep, goes from a 4 to a 3.
We're going to jump over to our discussion topic for the week, themes that lift up games. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Guilds of London.
So wait, is this what you're going for? Werewolves of London. So first of all, werewolf and guilds have different numbers of syllables.
Yeah.
Second off, the way you do London is not clipped at the end like he does it.
You're nitpicking,
you do it all
Sean.
sing-songy.
Look, acknowledge my greatness as a performer.
I will do no such thing.
Okay.
Instead, though, let's talk about some games from Tasty Minstrel, including Guilds of London, which you and I have not had a chance to play, but our buddy Mike Fitzgerald has talked this game up. An interesting hand management action selection game, medieval London, where you're trying to gain control of different guilds, send people off to the colonies. Sounds really interesting. The one I have played, though, is Thieves Market, which is also currently available, just came out from Kickstarter, where you are manipulating dice to try and buy cards to gain some special powers and have the most infamy at the end of the game.
Check out TMG at playtmg.com. All right, this week for our discussion topic, we're talking about themes that lift up games. And I think this one came to mind. Matthew suggested it, our good buddy Matthew, suggested it as a result of Haspelknecht, where the theme definitely works well with the gameplay for sure. I certainly enjoyed Haspelknecht enough mechanically. We've talked it over to death. But the theme certainly helps, that thematic connection of coal mining. Is it the quintessential game where a theme lifts up a game? I don't think so. Sean, what are some that come to mind for you?
Well, before we get into that, the week before, Nick had even mentioned when we were reviewing Tiny Epic Western, we were playing it, and he had talked about how a certain theme can enhance the gameplay experience by a factor of like 1.2. You know, not enough to be like, oh my God, this is the greatest game ever, but enough to raise it just a little bit. And so I think that's kind of how I'm thinking of this. It's not necessarily a bad game where the theme saves it, but it's a game where it's good or maybe even great, and the theme just ratchets it up that much more. So a couple that jumped to mind were Colt Express, a game that, again, I will never win at. And when I do win, it means that it's the end of days and head for the hills. But it's a game where the chaos of it, the plans that you make just completely interrupted. You can't do what you're trying to do, but for some reason, there's that cinematic element. You're seeing it in your mind. You're seeing your guys just kind of crash through the train car and knock people over. And then there's the other bandit, and you punch him in the face or you shoot him. And I love the theme, and it really does elevate that gameplay. Again, not to say that the gameplay is bad, but I think of a game like Evolution. I love that gameplay of Evolution, but the thought of the creature that you're building, that the different evolutionary traits that you're adding to them is creating this, horrific, weird, hard-shelled, tree-dwelling, like it's just kind of crazy.
Leaping out from the night.
Right, but the traits are just so thematic that it really does elevate what is an excellent card game into something more. I think of a game like Alchemist, where it's a good Euro, it's a decent Euro, but that whole theme of building potions and testing them out on students and possibly killing them. Some people even made songs about that before.
Let's go poison a student. Let's go poison a student.
You're publishing papers. You're trying to refute other people's papers. It's such a cool theme that really does raise that gameplay. And then another CG game, Dungeon Pets, I think too. I think the best part mechanically about that is divvying up your little kobolds. Are they kobolds or the goblins? What are they?
Sure.
They're kobolds? I can't remember.
They look kind of like something.
Gremlins? I don't know. But divvying them up into...
I don't think they're gremlins. But...
well, no. I think they're kobolds, I think. Anyway, divvying them up into the different action selection groups, which has that influence on priority, and I really enjoy that. But I think the whole idea of you've got these little, whatever they are, going out, they're digging out poo from the cages, they're building the cages, they're wrangling the pets, they're playing with the pets. It's just such a cool theme that I think takes what's a decent mechanism, a decent gameplay experience, and really does elevate it. So those are games that came to mind. Any that jumped out to yours?
Any Vital Lacerda game.
Okay.
And we talked about Vinhos earlier in this episode. I think Kanban, for instance, is a clunky experience that's elevated by its theme.
Yeah.
That the theme makes it enjoyable enough to play. Although, having played some of his other heavier games, I'm more likely to go to those first. Vinhos definitely felt like one of those where the theme elevated that game and made it connect and made it gel a little, at least in my mind.
Okay.
Gallerist to some degree as well. The starving artists, and you're trying to make their works more valuable. All of that. So I think any Lacerda game, I think Lacerda does a good job of using theme to elevate his play experiences.
I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly.
Terraforming Mars is a recent one that comes to mind where you're changing and morphing the surface of the planet, and you feel that. You feel dragging an asteroid onto the planet, and that's going to destroy someone's plants because maybe you aimed it right at their
Whoops.
greenhouse. Oh, my bad. Sorry, bro. Didn't see you were building a greenhouse there with a bunch of plants. Whoops. So I think that one has that thematic feel of really building Mars, and with the different corporations especially that have the abilities that tie in well. I think that game succeeds very well on theme, and we're sure to review that at some point soon. So won't talk too much about that. Those are the ones I definitely agree with you. Colt Express is one where the theme kicks it up another notch. Evolution the same way. I think your list was pretty solid. I would just add Lacerda and Terraforming Mars are kind of the ones that come to mind at the moment. I should say two. One more. Scythe. I think Scythe's theme really elevates that gameplay. The gameplay itself is rock solid, but the theme is just such a cool world to be in. And just thinking about it, I want to play Scythe right now. Oh, and one more that comes to mind, Above and Below.
Yeah.
The theme of that one takes gameplay mechanics that are good, not great.
Yeah.
And the theme of that just kicks it up another level.
Sure.
Love the theme in Above and Below. Love the storytelling you do in that game. So I think Scott Sexton mentioned that one on the Guild.
Right.
Speaking of Guild mentions, Chris Schreiber says, Sushi Go. People love sushi. The theme begs for really cute art, and the result is super accessible for almost anyone or any age. And I think that's right. I think if it weren't as cutesy and weren't of that kind of sushi theme, I think you'd have less interest in the game.
It always makes me want sushi, too.
Yeah. Well, you just saying sushi and Sushi Go, now I'm hungry for sushi.
Maybe Game Right has actually been lobbied by Big Fish.
Big Fish and Big Rice at the same time.
And Big Seaweed Wrap.
Oh, man. And then Chris also suggested Bonanza, a theme so seemingly silly and light that the pressures of min-maxing and trading disappear. But it registers because people called it by the theme for years. Let's play the Bean Game.
The Bean Game.
Yes.
Bonanza's fun. I like Bonanza.
I do like Bonanza. Scott Sexton, there is one game that immediately jumps to my mind, Time Stories. The story and theme elevate this to one of my favorite games of all time, but when you look at the skill checks and combat system in Time Stories, oh boy, is it bad.
Amen.
It is a toxic mix of fiddly and uninteresting. You have all these tiny shields and tokens you set up before you even roll, and then you have all these little fiddly rules. Depending on the rules, the shield tokens apply, and so on. It's a horrible mess and easily the worst part about Time Stories, and yet still one of his favorite games of all time.
Yeah, and I totally get that. And I think that for me, for someone that I do care a little bit more about mechanics than theme, that's why I'm not crazy about that. But that narrative element of Time Stories is really compelling.
Yes.
It is really compelling. I know that I'm in the minority here as far as that game goes.
I wanted to play that one more.
Yeah. I'm willing to play Prophecy of Dragons. Yeah. I feel like that theme might help me enjoy the system more.
Fair enough. Sylvain Lacroix listed several, but his favorite of the bunch was The Pursuit of Happiness. Mechanics are really simple. If it was not of the theme, the game would be pretty bad. but the fun we have at the table with this one makes it stand out over a bunch of other titles.
And it's kind of interesting. It's Gamer's Life. And I played it at BGG-Con last year. I had that same experience where I wasn't crazy about the mechanics of the game. We actually didn't wind up finishing the game because we were kind of all ho-hum on the mechanics, but it was a very thematic experience. You're getting jobs, and that's creating stress for you. You can have multiple relationships. Basically, you can have, a spouse and a mistress, or, someone you're cheating on.
This sounds like one I'd have a lot of fun with.
I think you would like this game a lot. Yeah, I think you would like this a lot.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, New Bedford right now. Yes, it has a clever new mechanic involved in the whaling board, but the designer really researched the time period and the era, and the game oozes with the theme. The theme, in my opinion, elevates what is a standard worker placement game with gorgeous art to a much better experience, and the expansion makes it more replayable. Jimmy says, one game that's theme is so much more interesting than its mechanics is CV. All the oddball art and thematic flourishes on the cards are far more fascinating than the Yahtzee-style mechanics involved in this game about creating the most fulfilling life for yourself from adolescence to old age. Jesse Metcalf came in with Caverna versus Agricola. I like Agricola enough, but the fantasy theme and more forgiving gameplay makes Caverna a far more appealing game.
And I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Matthew S. had a couple here. A Study in Emerald, particularly the first edition, is kind of a sprawling mishmash of mechanisms. That's not to say it's a bad game, but it's the amazing theme that takes it from good to great. Mechanically, I like Mythopia. I think Mythopia is clearly superior, but that is a game that only has as much theme as the players inject into it.
And Studying Emerald, such a crazy theme. The Elder Gods have taken over 19th century the 19th century world, and Sherlock Holmes and others are trying to resist against that and fight back against the world governments that have kowtowed to the Elder Gods. Really cool theme.
He also mentioned Yedo. Yedo's a little too long in the event deck, is a questionable design decision, but unlike Lords of Waterdeep, you actually feel like you're commanding the skullduggery of a Japanese clan when you play this, which compensates a lot for the flaws.
So many flaws, in fact, that I sold the game to Cameron after he ground my face into the dirt in one game of Yedo.
Excellent.
Thanks, Cameron, you big meanie.
Never gonna play that game. Y'all have fun with it.
It was really good, though, but it was really mean. Sure. It was super mean.
Ian Kissel wraps up our guild contributions with, I think Five Tribes is an interesting example of theme-enhancing gameplay. At its heart, Five Tribes is really just an abstract. However, by throwing in great art and lots of color, they managed to invoke the feeling of a theme, which makes the game far better than it would have been otherwise. Do you agree with that one, Sean?
I don't know. I see his point for sure. I know that I do love the gameplay of it now, after a very difficult time coming to terms with that.
And a lot of therapy.
Yeah. It was a true contender for my top 10. It was like 11 or 12 this last year. But I could see that, though. I mean, it definitely it can seem a little abstracted. But yeah, I think the theme is fantastic, and it's just a fantastic theme. The different Jin powers are great, and it is very colorful and bright, and the art's fantastic. So I can see his point.
Fair enough. All right. That's going to do it for our discussion topic. But before we wrap things up, some naming runner-ups. And we had some good ones, as always. Thanks to our folks on the Guild for contributing. I think the runner-up, at least for me, Sean, you may dispute this. BJ came up with The Working Dead. I like that. Coal miners combined with the undead zombie stuff.
Yeah.
Namefather Steve O'Rourke with Coal and Move. Play on the mechanic roll and move, which you're rolling in Zombie City, and then there's Coal and Haspelknecht, et cetera, et cetera.
Perfect.
Chris G with Connect Fear.
This requires some explanation.
A little.
Yeah.
So in the Fantasy Board Game League, there's a team called Haspelknecht&4.
Yeah, Brandon from the What Did You Play This Week podcast thing.
Yes. Now, I don't know if Chris G was he specifically referencing that?
I'm not sure, but later on,
Jake
from Draft Mechanic had kind of a similar
Haspelknecht&Fear.
Yeah.
This is Connect Fear.
Right.
So
Connect spelled as in Haspelknecht.
Right.
Like Connect 4. All right. So
gaming pun.
Zombies are make you fearful.
Yes. Unless you get 4 in a row of them, in which case they explode and you win immediately.
Is that Plants vs. Zombies?
No, it's nothing. It's Connecting 4.
Oh, I see. Sorry. I was concentrating.
Yeah, you went like way deeper than that required.
I'm like, I don't remember that from Plants vs. Zombies.
Todd Kauk came with Colon Over in His Grave, referencing again the coal and the undead. And Nick Hayes with Coal Dust and Bloodlust.
Yeah.
Like that. All right, well, those are the names, the runner-ups, but congrats to Chris Schreiber for winning this week, his 4th title.
That's crazy.
Ermengarde.
Yes, indeed. So that will do it then for episode 116 I guess happy Halloween to everyone out there.
Ooh, be safe.
Well, until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Alex, Hail Hydra.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on October 29th, 2016. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games and Meeple Realty. Check out TMG's awesome titles at PlayDMG.com. And for high-quality board game inserts, check out MeepleRealty.com. Meeple Realty, think inside the box. We'll see you back here next week. Until then, game on! All right, Sean.
Yeah.
What are you going to be for Halloween?
I don't know.
What?
But Chewie is going to be Jedi Elsa.
Jedi Elsa.
Yeah, she's got her Elsa. She's got an Elsa dress that she wears around the house, and she has a lightsaber that she carries around.
Your anger and hate, let it go.
So
I guess that would be Yoda Elsa.
That would be Yoda. Yeah, that'd be Yelsa.
Yelsa.
Yeah, so we're going to do trick-or-treating.
What are you going to do?
I don't know yet. Hold on, I'm getting there. So Mariah's going to be a green bean? I guess that's a thing.
Okay.
She's like, hey, can I order this costume? And I'm like, oh, sure, whatever. I didn't even look at it. And then I'm like, it's a green bean. That's weird. I'm going to be a homicidal maniac. We look just like everyone else. Adam's Family.
So what I was going to do is, and I saw this online, this is not an original idea, but because I've done absolutely nothing costume-wise, if I end up going to anything that needs a costume, I'm going to take a white t-shirt and a black marker, and I'm going to write, Error 404, costume not found on the shirt.
Okay.
Yeah. So at least it's a costume that makes fun of the fact that I don't have a costume.
Okay.
Yeah. Happy Halloween, Sean!
Ooh.
Dukes of Dice.